And now we can go through the official welcome now that we're recording. So again, hello everyone. And see, we've got 14 people on the call. And as I said, this is our September user group event. We normally meet once a month, as I've mentioned. And it's great to see everybody here. Great to see some familiar faces and some faces that I don't know so well. So that's great to see everybody. Just introduce yourselves. My name is Mark Jones. I am one of the co-leaders here for this user group. Previously, I was a Salesforce admin, technically with the title data coordinator at a non-profit up here in the Northeast. But I co-lead this user group alongside Luke, Luke, do you want to introduce yourself?
Yeah, you're welcome, everybody that haven't met before. Luke Mansfeld, co-lead the group with Mark. We've known each other now, must be coming up 18 months perhaps, or a long time since we've run the group together. And as you can see from our job titles, we share the group and we share the same job as well. Mark's recently just joined the team at Cloud Galacticos. He's not started yet, but yeah, I've been working there for a little over a year now, Salesforce consultant, and look forward to seeing Mark get stuck in as well and see where that new role, what that opens up for him. So good time.
Great. So now let's stop talking about us two and let's begin by talking about Dreamforce. So for those, I put in my blog, I recently wrote a blog about Dreamforce and kind of going through some of the highlights, and the way I introduced it was, unless you've been living on the rock a little bit, Dreamforce was last week. As many of us in the chat will probably know. Don't know how many of us saw Dreamforce at all or whatever, but to help us with that, hopefully, Luke, are you okay to put in the Slido poll link number in the chat? So we've got a poll that's going to go live now, which is basically around capturing what your thoughts were of Dreamforce for what you attended, and keeping with the theme, we are going to use Foo Fighters songs to tell us what you thought about Dreamforce. So the number should be on the screen there. So all you need to do is go to slido.com and then put in the number.
And that number, if you're just telling that, it's 760379. I posted that in the chat as well, and it's also on screen.
Great. Cheers, Luke. And basically, we've got 4 options here. We've got 4 Foo Fighters songs, as I say. We've got The Best of You, which is like, it was absolutely perfect. Could not be worse. Well, it could not be any better or worse. We've got What Did I Do, which was I didn't attend. Something from Nothing, which is, yeah, it was fine, it was okay. And we've got This Is a Call to represent that it was bad. So it'll be interesting to see kind of what people are thinking. We might give it another minute or so to let people come in, because I know we've got 15 people here on the call, and we've got 5 who's voted so far. So it looks like we're coming in kind of 40%, 40%. Well, actually now 50% saying that Dreamforce was okay. We might give us here another minute or so to let more results come through. We've got 15 on the call and we've got 7 responses. Okay, I don't see the numbers going up too much. If someone can flag up maybe in the chat if they're still trying to get on or what have you. I don't want to move on too quickly. At the same time, I also do want to move on as well. So
that might be us, Mark, maybe.
Yeah, it looks like it might be. I see Claire's just arriving, so
yes,
let Claire in and see. Hi Claire, don't know if you can hear me yet, but we just begin our session today by looking at Dreamforce. So if you want to, and you go to slido.com, there should be a number on the screen, and hopefully in the chat as well, we'll repost it just to let us know what you thought about Dreamforce this year, if you saw anything from it. I might give that another minute now and see. Well, it looks like 50-50. You're saying it was okay. Okay, now not 50-50. Sometimes you say these and then it just changes. That's the beauty of online polls. So I've got 10 responses. So it looks like still people are either seeing, for the most part, they either didn't attend or it was fine. We've got 2 responses that were saying that was great. So with that being said, Luke, shall we start going through the highlights? Just I think we might be about there in terms of poll numbers.
Yeah, definitely. And certainly for those that were unable to attend, we'll try and highlight some useful things that came out of the session.
Cool. So let's move on. So in terms of the highlights from Dreamforce, I'm going to kick off with a couple of ones, and then Luke's going to chime in, and we're going to go back and forth on what's some of the highlights we've got. So for me, this one is true to the core, and for me, it's a little bit of a personal highlight because I actually saw on Twitter a request for questions for true to the core. I submitted one, and one of my question was actually answered live at true to the core. Was the second question overall that came through. So for me, this was a little bit biased because it was a really cool moment to kind of see that moment happen. Wasn't something I was expecting. Salesforce in no way communicated that we're planning to answer that question. So for me, it was kind of a little bit of a geek out moment, having my question answered in front of 2 million people watching online and however many people were in the audience at that time. But the true to the core session was quite good overall, in my opinion. That there is some debate about within the community, to be fair, about how long the question should have been. But for me, I think it was a decent session, and that might be me coming in as a newbie to true to the core, but I actually found it all right. I do think it would have been better with more questions, but at the same time, we kind of got what we got. So I'm trying to see the positives in that. Some of the topics that were covered were flow. That was what my question was based on. There was also questions around modify all data permissions, PII, and also Lightning optimization. The Lightning optimization question was quite a controversial one, as most of us who have used Lightning for a while know it can be quite slow. And the response was, why didn't you tell us Lightning was being this slow? Whereas if you look at Twitter and LinkedIn, you see that all the time. So that's the first highlight I wanted to mention. And we might hopefully be putting links in the chat to these sessions as well, so you can go away and watch them, which hopefully saves you having to navigate around Salesforce Plus to some degree to try and find them, because it's not too easy to find stuff on Salesforce Plus unless you know what you're looking for and where you're specifically going.
Yeah, posted the link to that one, Mark, in the chat.
Great, cheers, Luke. And the second highlight for me I wanted to cover was something which I actually quite like. I got to try this out after watching it on the Trailblazer session that happened, which is Trailhead for Slack. Luke and I use Slack to kind of talk about the user group here, but as well, there's many other instances I've been involved in Slack, and I love Slack as a tool. And now that Salesforce own it, we're starting to see a lot of integrations with Slack coming. And this is the first one that we've been able to really try. Some of the other ones that are coming down the pipeline includes things like Flow for Slack, Flow Orchestrator for Slack, and there's also one coming for Apex as well, I believe. But this is one I got to try, and all that you really do is you install this integration into Slack, and you can then put in your / Trailhead search, and you can see badges on Trailhead. You can search for badges. You can share them into conversations. You can share them via messages. You can even open them up from a click of a button into the Trailhead Go app if you're on your mobile. You can also favorite them straight all from Slack. So this is quite a good tool, I think, as well. The only thing I find is a bit of a disadvantage for this is how it would also include all of the ones that are optimized for desktop. So if you were looking at it in your phone, you won't actually you would see all the badges, which isn't too bad of a thing, but some of the badges aren't optimized for mobile.
One of the things just on that, Mark, on the Trailhead for Slack, I tried the integration as well. And from within Slack, if you're of a mind to, you can set yourself a reminder to complete some of your in-progress badges, because it gives you a good overview of what's in progress. If you're that way inclined, also just related to Slack, on some of the other Dreamforce sessions. I personally, I use Slack all day for my day job. All of my work is based in Slack, but there's a Google Calendar integration, which was dead simple, but it just allows you to work in one screen. So I've got all of my work channels. I've got my conversations with Mark on the user group. I've got my Trailhead if you want it. I've got my Google Calendar. Just in terms of screen time, it's nice if you're like that way inclined to be able to have everything in one place. Dead simple, but it's good.
Cool. And Luke, these two are yours. So shall we? I'll pass over to you.
Yeah, definitely. I saw both of these highlights on the Salesforce platform roadmap. They're admin tools, which I thought were pretty cool. So one of the new features, which is multi-object pages, I think is how they're referring to it officially. It allows you to reference multiple fields from different objects on a single record page. So rather than having to refer to a related list, which is on a separate tab, it needs to take time to load. You're seeing that information in isolation. What you can do now with the example that you can see on screen, this is the one that Salesforce gave, but the car info fields that you see in the top of the page are coming from one object, and the field below related to the car battery units is coming from a second object. So I think this is really cool. It's quite simple, but you can combine fields from multiple objects onto the same page without having to have the related list that takes out loads of time. So relatively simple, but I think there might be some good use cases for this out there.
Yeah, and just for clarity, Luke, I can't remember, but can you remember if they said on the session whether or not they had to be like related to each other via like a lookup or a master detail? I assume that they do, but I can't remember if they said or not.
Yeah, to be honest, it was like a 30-40 second. It was a quick demo, so something to follow up on, but it wasn't explicitly mentioned how they'd have to be connected to each other.
As you haven't mentioned it, I suspect the answer is no. Did they mention a timeline?
Also, before the end of the session, I'll get back to you, but it is on there, to be fair. They did mention the timeline. Top of my head, let me dig it out.
Yeah, we'll put that in the chat.
Yeah.
But I imagine it'll be sometime at least before next winter release if they promoted it this year, Dreamforce.
You would hope so.
Yeah, I would hope so.
And the next one, again, it's another admin customizable tool, but this is giving you the ability to filter related lists. So the screenshot you can see is a Lightning record page, or the app builder, if you like. And the scenario would be that a customer service agent wanted to see open and closed cases side by side. So you can see at the top, you've got the component with the compact layout for the details about the account, but then you could place a related object component next to each other, and you could filter it to say, on the one on the right, I would like to see closed cases. On the one on the left, I would like to see open cases. And then again, from a user experience point of view, you're getting that pre-filtered information in a single view, and it's just helping your users a little bit. So I thought that was something else which was pretty cool. Again, on those two items, I'll come back in the chat later. We're in the main presentation, just to let you know timing on those. But the two features I thought were good, small things, but would be effective.
Yeah, and this one will be good as well, because at the moment you can do this, but if you use an App Exchange application, but you can't do it natively within Salesforce. So it's going to be great to have this as a native feature, which will make a little bit easier on the admin's part in some ways, because the App Exchange app you can do it with is sometimes a bit complex, whereas hopefully this will be quite easy.
Yeah.
But moving on to a couple more from myself. This one is one that I think it's an important one to know about. However, as an admin, I have some kind of skepticism about this one, in all honesty. And this is something that's called Citizen App Development. And what it is, it's a permission that's being rolled out where it'll give end users the facility to create and customize Lightning app pages. So whether it's the app page, home page, or record pages, it'll allow them to use App Builder to customize their own experience. In theory, this is a good idea, but in practice, I think as an admin, this might become something that could become potentially unmanageable for admins, particularly when you bear in mind how the Lightning App Builder assigns app pages. So record pages where it assigns into either the org default, app default, or a combination of record type, app, and profile. You can't assign them currently to say a specific individual. So I can't say assign a page to just say Luke unless he had a specific profile that was Luke Mensfeld, for example. So if Luke was on a team of say sales staff, if I come in as an end user, not an admin, and wanted to assign it to myself, for example, and I was a sales user, I would be assigned it to potentially all of the team. So I have some reservation about this one personally. I think it could be a good feature, but I have some marginal concerns about safeguarding and putting some guardrails on there for this one. But that's just my opinion. I feel you might have a different opinion, but I just have some pause from my experience and for this one. But I think it's an important one for us to know about going forward. The last one I want to mention, this goes into a question that Salvatore asked before we officially started, is that we'll be putting the link to this video in the chat, but this wasn't featured on the live stream. However, I came across this via a message that someone had sent me on LinkedIn to say that Ian Gotts of Elements.Cloud had run a campfire session talking about the preparation for the business and analyst certification that's been heavily rumored all across this year. So what that basically says to me, in my view, as an admin kind of thinking through, is that if this has been talked about at Dreamforce, it's coming up pretty soon. So forward-looking statement, I would imagine that we would probably get some kind of official announcement about the release of the business analyst cert sometime between now and Trailhead DX over in June. That's kind of what I would anticipate. But again, I could be wrong. That's the forward-looking statement, but that's my guess. That'll be coming somewhere between now and June. But this kind of confirms that it is something that is definite and is coming probably fairly soon.
And that was the last link that I just shared in the chat. Sorry, I'm bombarding everyone with links, but the last one, the YouTube link I shared, was the one related to that session. Okay, so coming down to the last two highlights, one of the things I was really impressed with on the data side, I'm a huge fan of data and analytics and using data to help organizations. So I have grouped some of the advancements related to the Tableau, Einstein Discovery, Slack First Analytics, and the Ask Data piece. I was so impressed by the speed at which some of the data initiatives are in advancing. So I think particularly the screenshot I've got there is from the Slack First Analytics, and with the integration they have with the sort of Tableau app within Slack, it means that people can get data-driven alerts when, if you set certain criteria or conditions up. You can see dashboard activity if you've been mentioned, or again, if you've set criteria. You can receive watch list digests. You can also run predictions and things within Slack. And the same with Einstein Discovery. Now, if anybody on the call is interested in data and hasn't yet had a chance to look at Einstein Discovery, there's some great Trailhead modules, but it's a very impressive tool. I'd need to speak to people that have run it natively because it's working on perhaps pre-built data sets, but I think it's a great tool. And again, you can run that from within Slack and share recommendations. And I think what I like about this, I think with giving people the data that they need when they need it in areas where it's useful to them as part of their day-to-day work. I think that's the key. I think it's putting things in front of people that's relevant to them and useful to them in their day-to-day. And I think what I like, one of the takeaways language-wise, and it's a bit of a selling point, but you can take action at the point of insight. So you could receive a notification that's relevant to you on something that's you're interested in, that you can respond to, collaborate on, get some feedback on. So I think, it's the way forward. I would like to work in an organization that's so integrated in its use of data and improvements. So it's one of the areas that was a particular highlight for me. And finally, I'll move on this one quickly, but if we have any analysts on the call, or visual communicators, or designers, or visual thinkers, those that like to map out processes and relationships and overviews, one of the big big positives is that Salesforce and Lucidchart. For those that aren't aware what Lucidchart is, it's a process mapping canvas, a very sort of sophisticated process mapping canvas. But they've worked together and they've launched the first Salesforce shape library. So what this means, as you can see on the left-hand side, they've got all of their product icons, logos, official industry icons, service icons, etc. You have a full suite of visual Salesforce tools, which you can use in what is already a great tool. So they've released the shape library along with 3 templates, which are examples of the Salesforce diagram framework. So I think this is quite a big deal because you can create consistent and professional looking client facing content or internal content. If you're mapping data models, mapping processes, you want to visually communicate relationship between things. I think this is a big step forward because prior to this, the templates which they did have were in PowerPoint and Google Docs, which was not so bad. But I just think this is it's much more efficient. You can share it with your team. You can collaborate at the same time. You can output really efficiently. So it's, I think this is a pretty cool one.
Yeah, it does look pretty cool. I was on a bit of a play around with them with the business capability map template this afternoon. I was quite enjoying that. Before we move on, I'll probably stop sharing my screen for now, just so I can actually see people. But I thought it might be really cool to see if anybody else had anything they wanted to share, particularly around their highlights from Dreamforce, if there was any, before we moved on. Looks like we've gone pretty quiet, so
it's okay if you don't, but like,
yeah,
you know,
absolutely.
you're more than welcome to unmute yourself. But if you don't want to, you put in the chat. But equally, if there's nothing, don't feel forced.
Yeah. Cool. Claire says you enjoy Will Smith.
Yeah.
Yes. Yeah. Apparently there's some debate about where the video is at the moment. So it's not been uploaded yet.
Yeah, I like Brian just commented as well, not to go back to the Lucidchart too much, but just to say you can open the Lucidchart template from the architect site, and that there's some really good what do you call them, data models or Salesforce Enterprise. They refer to them as ERD diagrams, but basically for your big objects like Sales Cloud and Service Cloud, they've got a complete map in Lucidchart to show you all of the objects it connects to, which is really cool. But if anyone on the anyone that calls passionate about process maps, analysis, and diagrams, if you follow me on Twitter, there's something that's going out hopefully tomorrow from my company related to this. But I love all of this topic of conversation. So if anyone's doing this and wants to continue, I've done quite a lot of research, which I'll be happy to share, which might save you some time if you're trying to get into it. Just to say. Yeah.
And before we move on as well, Brian did mention something which I didn't talk about too much, but it does fall into part of the true to the core, which was about the retirement of Process Builder and workflow rules. So I'll briefly cover that very quickly, just to kind of make sure everybody on who's here tonight is aware of what's happening. So at the admin preview for Release Readiness Live a few weeks back, it was announced that over the next 12 months, work would be done to begin retiring Workflow Rule and Process Builder. So, like I mentioned before, like the question I submitted to True to the Core was about this topic, because as soon as I heard that announcement, I didn't actually watch admin preview because I was in bed, to be fair. It was the time difference. But when I woke up the following morning, my Twitter had exploded with all this conversation around like I even heard someone using it going, "Oh, expletive, I've now got to learn Flow." Was one of the first tweets I saw in the morning. So I submit the question basically saying, when would this be happening approximately? Because as many of us on the call if could imagine, if you're an admin working for an organization and you haven't really dived into Flow, you heard this announcement, you might start to panic a little bit and kind of go, okay, we've got potentially tens or even hundreds of workflows and process builders combined. How are we going to get all of this across into Flow? Especially when I have no idea what Flow is or how to do a flow, build a Flow. So what was announced is that in spring 22, there was going to be a migration tool for workflow rules to Flow. In summer 22, the same kind of tool is going to come out, but it's going to be for process builder to Flow. And then from winter 23, no workflow rules or process rules are going to be able to be created. However, existing ones are going to be able to be edited. So you won't be able to create new processes or workflows, but you'll still be able to update potentially and make changes to existing ones. From that point on, Salesforce are going to be doing a review of the state of like how many workflows and processes are active, and from there deciding on how to approach a formal end of life plan for both. But they have said quite consistently that the plan is to have one declarative automation tool, with that tool being Flow. So in the long term, both process building and workflows will probably be completely retired at some point, but we won't know anything for probably maybe until at least the next Dreamforce about the formal plans for that, maybe even further down the line. Okay, so with that, shall we move on? And so, Vicki, I didn't actually ask you this beforehand, but do you want me to run the slides, or are you happy to do it yourself, or how would you like to do it?
Either way, I can go ahead and grab them if you want. You can take a little break.
Cool, no worries. Well, whilst we're getting set up, just like I'll quickly introduce this session here. So we invited Vicki to come and talk to us this evening, because again, Vicki's one of my favorite people I've met over the course of the last year, and we're talking tonight about certifications. So, but I don't want to spend too long to take into Vicki's time. So Vicki, I'll pass over to you and just say, over to you.
Thanks for being here.
Thanks. Yeah, I'd have to say that's mutual, Mark. So I'm so glad to be here tonight with all of you. And I know some faces in the room already. I see some people that look familiar. So yes, I am head of training with Supermums for right now. I will be, this might be a little bit of a forward-looking statement kind of thing, but I will be moving on from Supermums at the end of October. So kind of keep an eye on the space. And I'll be moving into the consultant world as well. So I'm a marketing champion, certified instructor, and Mark, thanks for putting the slide together. It makes it look entirely too much there. But I have 11 certifications, and we'll talk through some of those and my journey today. And a 5 times trailhead ranger and 3 times mom, which is probably my biggest accomplishment, is getting the kids addicted to trailhead modules and having them have fun watching the confetti go up in there. That's what they think I do for a living, by the way, is play with the computer and play with Astro plushies and have confetti fly on the computer. So I figured I'd start off today because Mark had invited me to talk about certifications, and I've done the same speech a couple of times with all of my certification tips and things like that at London's Calling, most recently at Pakistan Dreaming. I didn't want to do the same thing for you guys. So I wanted to make this a little bit more of an interactive session. So I figured I'd start off by sharing my certification journey and what it's looked like for me, and then get a conversation going about everybody's certification plans and really how you can make your certifications align to your career, because there has been a lot of talk about certifications and just almost the Pokemon mindset. They're coming out with so many cool new ones, that like the business analysis one that we just talked about, and it makes you want to catch them all. So how can you decide, how can you make them valuable for yourself and your learning experience and help to drive your career in the direction you want it to go? So my certification journey started in 2018, which proves that I haven't been here for very long. I see people in the ecosystem who have been in Salesforce for years. I was a Salesforce user, but not in the actual admin space until 2018. I had started studying admin off of the back of having my second kid and coming back from maternity leave and just wanting something new. So with a colleague, Brooke Bracey, who was with Supermums for a while too, she introduced me to Trailhead, and we started to motivate each other, get a little competition going on and wanting to get all of the badges, and upskilled that way. So in 2018, at the end of the year, I finally got my first certification, which was the admin. And I have to say, it's one of the hardest ones is getting your first certification. It gets easier with each one after that. So for anybody who is studying for their first admin exam, it's normal for it to be hard and to feel overwhelming sometimes. Then 2019, by that time I had joined Supermums and started to have my certifications aligned more to my job. So that's where I've put underneath of these in Supermums Blue, kind of the ones that were inspired by where I was and where I was working, what needed to be done. So Supermums became a registered partner. For those of you who haven't been through that experience, and this is being recorded, so I won't go into it too awfully far about all of the gray hairs that it gave me. But you have to have 2 consultant certifications in order to be able to become a registered partner. And we didn't have those. So it was a little bit of a quick, I had been thinking about getting certified in these 2 areas, but quick, let's get them over the line so that we can get our registered partner status. And it's always great to be able to have a goal like that you're working towards that can help your organization at the same time. And then towards the end of the year, we had started to look into the Marketing Cloud course. So that's where you'll see my certifications kind of start to align with that marketing role. And personally, I didn't have a marketing background per se. I had done a little bits and pieces, but it was always something that interested me. So with marketing, I do have said this in other talks, and if you come onto any of the Marketing Cloud courses, you'll hear it from me too, that you don't have to have a marketing background to learn marketing automation. You have to be curious about marketing though. So that's where I started to read books on marketing, to really upskill, to make sure that I knew the theory behind marketing in order to be able to use that tool. So fast forward to 2020. Finally got that certified instructor certification, which is one of the hardest ones that I had to earn. It consists of a certification teach, which is 4 hours long. And you memorize about 300 some slides to be able to teach a course. And they can ask any point to teach slides 300 to 312 or any point around that. And it is a very intense one. So for anybody who is looking to be a certified instructor, you do go through a partner usually for that, but I'm always happy to chat more. But that's why I put it nice and big up here, because it's one that took a lot of effort. And with anything that takes a lot of effort like that, you're kind of proud of it. So I had also kept going down the Marketing Cloud path, and to launch the course, got the admin and the consultant. And then I started down the technical path, which this was just for me because I had always been looking at dev. I had taken a computer science class in university. I really liked it, but didn't go anywhere with it. So I've always been tempted by the world of coding. And I started to think, well, maybe, just maybe, that might be for me. So I started to go down the platform app, advanced to admin, kind of like circling around it. And then 2021, and 2020, by the way, also was a year where I had some time to study, half time to study. I was on maternity leave for 3 months. So I got some Trailhead modules in around feeding times and the nap times and all of that fun stuff. And then 2021, this year, I managed to get the Marketing Cloud and then went down the Pardot path for launching a course that, as of right now, has been canceled, but maybe sometime in the future, who knows. And then also kept going down the path just for me. And you'll see the user experience designer. That was so much fun to take. And then a big red X around platform PD1, because it is a doozy and I haven't managed to pass that one yet. So maybe in 2022. So that's just kind of my path. And I put the disclaimer up there. Your path should not and will not look like mine. I put mine up there just so that everybody can see where I came through, but everybody's path is not going to look the same. So you have to decide for yourself about what you want your certification journey to look like. It may be that you're going slower through the certs and learning and using things hands-on at the same time. It may be that you're focusing on other things. So how can you even start off? Well, this is one of the slides from Salesforce Ben. It shows all of the certification paths. And I think this one came June 2021. So it's already missing the designer path that they've added on. And I'm sure that by this time next year, there will be even more paths that are being added on here. But there's so many out there. So how do you decide what to choose? Well, I kind of like to sit down and take a nice look at this, read through the article, look at the trailhead modules and the exam guides and everything like that and say, okay, well, that one kind of seems interesting to me. Or that one, I absolutely have to get it. Or that one, oh no, that's not, I'm not going anywhere near that. So you can almost use Moscow prioritization or something like that to be able to decide what order you want to focus on your certifications. And for those of you who don't know Moscow, must have, should have, could have, and would have. And that will let you get an order and see where there's overlap as well, because what I found from the certifications is that going from one to the other, there's so many, especially the marketing ones, where you build from one to the other. So Marketing Cloud Specialist, it helps you study for your Marketing Cloud Admin, which helps you study for your Marketing Cloud Consultant. And it just builds from one to the other. So you almost get some momentum as you're going through them. So wherever there's overlap, you can use that. And once you've gotten that list, my next recommendation would be having a moment to visualize where you want to go. And I put up a book that some of you may be familiar with. It's from the same person who runs Focus on Force. And it's an awesome book. I've read through it myself. I don't think I finished page for page, but I'd highly recommend it for anybody who's looking, because it's like on Trailhead, where you see that vision of what a typical day looks like. I think I might even see some names that have been in that book as giving examples of your day-to-day daily routine, or just quotes about what inspired people to go down the paths they went. And I know for myself, I find that so inspiring to see what somebody else is doing and to say, okay, well, that aligns with what I want my 5-year, 10-year plan to look like. So yes, that comes to my next point is think about the future. It doesn't need to be next year, I want to be a developer. It can be, 5-10 years down the road, why not? And gradually moving in that direction and gradually learning a little bit more. Or it may be that you go towards marketing or towards the designer certification paths. So you can get a feel, and especially from reading through those scenarios, of what you want your day-to-day to look like. And here's where I put a fake picture of what I would like my day-to-day to look like. There's some great values here, and there's Mind Tools is a website that I found, and I put the link in here, and I will also go ahead and throw this in the chat. Up. Oh, and I forgot that that does that to me all the time. There we go. Here we go. So Mind Tools is a great resource, and it has all of the values in there. So you can start to decide which ones are the most important to you and which ones you want to be moving your career towards. So I know that some of mine are, of course, my family and wanting to be able to spend time with the kids, and see this one and my other 3. This is my oldest daughter in the picture. To be able to spend lots of nice quality time with them. And most recently, we got a nice big van because as a family of 5, we were having trouble fitting in the car. And my husband got the idea of getting a tent that blows up on the top of it. So we just tested it out and are looking forward to being able to use it in the next year or so. But it's that idea of what would you like your future to look like? Do you see yourself traveling for work? Do you want to get involved in conferences? And when we go back to in person, be speaking at conferences, going to Dreamforce, going to Your Dreaming, going to all of these great events that are going on? Do you see yourself office working? You want to get in the office. You're one of those people who's itching to get back and wants to be able to sit down in a conference room and work face-to-face with people. Or do you want to do remote working? And even what type of worker are you? Do you like to be on calls all day interacting with people? Is that really what gets you up and motivated in the morning and you love meeting new people that way? Or is it something where you like to have your focus time and you like to just be able to sit down at a computer, dig into something, and be able to troubleshoot, problem solve, code, do admin point and click, or whatever it is that interests you? So once you've kind of gotten that picture in your head, that's where you can align these two sides around, yeah. Mark, that's a great one in the chat there is Brad Rice from Talent Stacker had that 4-month road trip. And that is absolutely what we're trying to do with that van. Yeah, so then once you have that picture of your head of what you'd like your life to look like and what certifications interest you, that's where you try to find the overlap. So that's where you can start to see, well, how do the certifications align for my current role? Because as you saw in mine, there were a whole bunch of things that I did for my job role. And then how do you also build in some of them so that you're focusing on what you want? And if there's any difference there, and maybe that they align perfectly and that the two go in the same direction, but it may be that you're squeezing a couple of certs in there or just curiosity. It could be not certifications, but going on to Trailhead and learning that way. That both fits your current needs and tends to your future plans at the same time. And I'm going to steal one of Pei's conversations from her last group that I managed to get on. It's nice having you here, Pei, because I was planning on stealing it anyway, but giving you credit for it, is the concept of ikigai, and I'm probably pronouncing that wrong, in Japanese. It's in the chat here. And it's the idea of finding that perfect middle where you have your values that are inspiring you, you have your work that's inspiring you and the mission behind it. And it really is a balancing act. And I liked this picture here because it shows just everything that you might be doing at the same time. And that's where, whenever you're talking about certifications, I also say, take it easy on yourself. Thanks, Pei. Yeah, take it easy on yourself. It may be that things don't work out the way that you want them to. I know I had a crazy idea that I was going to pass the Marketing Cloud Consultant exam while I was on maternity leave. Forgot that I was going to have a newborn baby at the house that was not going to let me sleep all night, and managed to get through the advanced admin on no sleep, but there was no way I was getting the Marketing Cloud Consultant on no sleep. So I kept pushing that one back month by month, and it was 6 months of pushing the certification back before I actually took it. So things come up, it's not all going to go to plan, and it is a balancing act of just making sure that you're not putting too much pressure on yourself, keeping yourself motivated at the same time, and just finding what feels right for you. So before I open it up for just general conversation, I wanted to share some pro tips for you, which is that certifications aren't everything. So it is important not only to get your Salesforce certifications, it shows that you know your stuff, that you're able to pass the exam, that you intimately have gotten familiar with whatever that product is that you're getting certified on. But it's also important to fill out your well, not even your resume, but fill out your career path with soft skills like the amazing ones that Mark and Luke put together over the last month. And I'm sure that some of you have seen. And other related certs too. There's third-party app certs that are out there. There's a whole bunch of third-party app certs. Some of them are free, some of them are not free. I saw a great blog that I'll try to find in a moment before we all go off on Salesforce Ben about them. And they can help to advance your career as well. And then even other related certs. So project manager, at the time I put this together, I didn't know that there was going to be the business analysis coming out. So that's really cool to see from Salesforce. But it may be that you're getting a Prince certification or some sort of Scrum Master certification or whatever really aligns with and complements those Salesforce certs that you're doing. And of course, hands-on experience. So nothing can replace your hands-on experience, whether it is some people volunteer for nonprofits. You always want to make sure that you are at a point where you know enough to be able to give them a good implementation. I know there's some different thoughts around that. And even creating things in your own org. So it may be that you create an app in your org to manage your day-to-day. I know that when a kid gets a medicine or something like that, you can put an app together and give yourself little email reminder alerts so that you're getting reminders to give medicine each day, or when the start and stop dates are, or something like that, or it can even be grocery lists that you're putting in Salesforce, but whatever allows you to get that hands-on experience and just create some scenarios yourself. And then of course, Trailhead, because Trailhead just opens it up for everybody. You don't have to worry about the price of a certification or anything like that. It's out there, it's free for everybody. It is just overwhelming sometimes. There's so many modules out there, but it's a great way to learn and complement your certifications. And even there's super badges out there that are a way of getting ready for your certifications too. I know that I did the super badge on Service Cloud to be able to prepare for the Service Cloud exam, and it definitely helped to be thinking through those scenarios and working through them. So this is where I give you all a little corny image that I found here, which is some encouragement for all of you and that you can do this. And yeah, I'd love to just open it up for some general conversation and hear. All of you are here either to hear about Dreamforce or to hear about certifications. You stuck around to hear about certifications. So what are your plans going forward? Do you have any study tips or like favorite bits and pieces that you use?
And if you feel comfortable, please unmute yourself and talk. Same time, if you'd like to post something in the chat, we'll happily put those questions to Vicki. But yeah.
What I found during my Salesforce certification has been quite valuable is combining Trailhead Live with Trailhead.
Yeah, those are some awesome resources on there. And they even, the Trailhead Live I've discovered recently has a lot of best practices and things like that. So not only studying for the exams, but going out there and actually doing implementations and things like that, you can find out all sorts of use cases, best practices around it.
Yeah, and you've also got things like the certification days for those exams that do have certification days. They don't have them for all of the certs, but they certainly do for admin, advanced admin, app builder, and then there's some other ones as well. Like I think Marketing Cloud's one of them. But just have a look on Trailhead for certification days. They're free, and you also at the end of them get a $40 certification voucher to help cover the costs if you attend.
Is there anybody on the call now that's got a certification exam planned or booked in for October? Is there anyone working? Is anyone working towards anything that's imminent or got one planned or even sooner than that?
I just booked
Yeah.
Oh, you did, Claire. That's awesome. Which one?
Service Cloud. I booked it for mid-November, but I think I'm going to pull it forward a couple of weeks. I think end of October should be doable.
Nice.
But yeah, I realized I had a voucher that I'd won from the Women in Tech group like months ago that I hadn't used. So that was a nice bonus as well to be able to do it for free. And there's like a big project that goes live at work in November. So I thought I'd best try and do it before that. Yeah, I'm quite excited, but the only thing I am a little bit nervous about doing like the first consultant exam that I'll have done, because I think that they can catch you out with some really weird edge cases that maybe aren't covered in Focus on Force. So I'm using Focus on Force, but I've read a few reviews that say that the consultant exams maybe don't match up quite as much to the practice ones that you see there. I don't know if anyone else.
Yeah, I've taken the Service Cloud one, Claire, and I prepped on the Focus on Force materials as well. I did have a hands-on project at work prior, so there was things you were doing to, I guess with the consultant ones, they're very feature focused. So email to case, web to case, you know, the service console, omni-channel sort of reporting. I guess it's, I quite enjoyed the Service Cloud exam, actually. I thought it was.
I really like it, actually. I find it much more interesting than the Sales Cloud stuff. I like having two windows open and talking to each other through like the chat messenger.
Yeah.
Service Cloud, the only thing that threw me off on that one, and that was rote memorization basically, was the CTI integrations, because if you don't have a use case for those, then
yes, me too. So I've just been making notes and just memorizing exactly like you said, because I don't have any that doesn't come into my work at all. So
hi, I'm not sure 100%, but I think the CTI stuff will be less included in Service Cloud consultants, because I remember Salesforce released something like omni-channel or something like that. So this is for omni-channel is asked a lot about the CTI integration, and for anybody who want to see the new use case, I can help you with. It's not really difficult, but as long as you just watch the use case and you know what is the CTI and the open CTI and integration, it's quite easy understand the concept. So just reach out to me, I can help.
Thanks, Louis. That's great.
Thanks, Louis.
Thanks, Louis. Yeah, and I see Paul's mentioned something which is quite helpful in the chat here. So so if you're working for a non-profit, you are eligible to get a 50% discount for cert exams. The official number for exams you can request cert discounts for is for 5 exams, and the way you would do that is you just get in touch with the community team over salesforce.org, and they can help point you in the right direction. I also saw a question here from Brian, which I think is quite a good one, which was just around like, what's everyone's thoughts on studying for a cert that doesn't align to your job, and what's a good way to gain experience?
Yeah, I think that's a good question, Brian. I've got something to add to that. Prior to transitioning to consulting, when I worked as an end user in oil and gas, we did so much on data analytics, but we use Salesforce, but we connected Salesforce to Microsoft Power BI rather than a Tableau, for example. And we've done a whole host of complexity about reporting, automation, analytics, issuing, security, governance, all of the topics we would see in Salesforce. So I moved over to consulting, and most of the projects I've picked up, nearly all of them actually have been Sales and Service Cloud projects in the last year. And I haven't touched data for so long, and I really miss it. So I've got my Tableau CRM exam booked. I'm not hands-on with data day to day. So most recently, I thought I've got to work back towards this. So I tried to search online for different data sets. So I tried to find a subject I was interested about with some data that I could work with my dev org to build something up to, do some of this stuff. So really for me, day to day in my, I look ahead the next 3 months of my role, there's no Tableau project on the cards yet, but it's something I'm really passionate about. So it's not something I'm going to use day to day in my job, but I really want to get back into it. So I think in that case, trying to find something relevant to me about a sporting data set or a travel data set or something interesting, engage on Twitter, on the community, reach out to other experts. I think it's just reviewing those ways you've got to try and pick up some experience if it's building something on the side or trying to volunteer on something. But I think don't be put off by that if it doesn't suit your day-to-day job. You know, if you've got a real passion for it and you want to do it and you're willing to sacrifice the time, go for it.
Yeah.
And you just mentioned volunteer on something. It's a very passionate thing within the non-profit sector. Volunteer on volunteering is fine, but also find a project that find some admin that you want to, that you could imagine automating in your own life, whether it's video collection, Netflix, shopping, anything like that. With volunteering, it's a long-term commitment because the non-profits have to invest in you to get you up to speed. That takes them away from their core mission. So if you just volunteer for a couple of weeks and then disappear again, then that actually can have a more detrimental impact for the non-profit.
Yeah, good point, Paul.
Yeah.
And it used to, I came in by the non-profit experience route, but you've got to do it. It works, but you need to do it mindfully.
Yeah, good point.
Sorry, just passion. It's a passion thing out there.
If you can find a nonprofit that's maybe close to you or something like that, that you already know them, you're already involved with them, that's a great use case to be able to use it.
Yeah, absolutely. And just picking up on what Luke was answering as well, and going back to Brian's question, I think there's another side to that coin, which is not necessarily around it's about more like forward thinking as well. So if, for example, you're in an organization, you're working as a consultant, for example, and you don't have any projects coming in on, say Slack, for example. I think Slack's probably quite a good one because there will be more projects coming in over the course of the next 2 to 3 years. It might not start imminently, but you'll see more projects coming in around that. And you decide you want to do the Slack admin cert, for example, or even the Slack developer cert. You might not be doing that stuff day to day, but thinking ahead and kind of going, what's coming down the pipeline that I might have to look at the skill set for could also help as well. And I see that Brian put in the chat, so you're looking at going down the architect path. Yeah, so yeah, that's a good one as well. Johan, you've mentioned there, really good friend of ours in the community. We had Johan in April talking about things admins can learn from developers. And yeah, so in the architect stuff, look at watching the keynote. I only got about 15 minutes in, but a lot of the stuff there looks very interesting. So that's also part of it as well, like Vicki, you were saying as well, like looking at where do you want to go in your career. If you want to go down the architect path and you're working as an admin, then you might have to look at doing things like doing the certs yourself, maybe, those kind of things. So there's that side of it as well. So there's nothing wrong with going, I want to go down this path, but I'm currently on this path. And doing this, looking at doing the certs to help out along with that.
Yeah, and I would say, Brian, that's actually where I would love to see myself going sometimes. So that's where PD1 is starting to come into it. But find some groups too. Right now, I'm going to be doing Rad Women Code the next month. So there are groups out there. And if you can find a group of people who are studying all together, even like Ladies Be Architects, or I really like following people on social media that are already in that path that you want to go down, because you can start to read their blogs and things like that and just pick up on things little by little and start to move yourself in that direction. I see a great question here as well from Akib about at what point do you feel prepared to take the CERT exam? And about failing the CERT exam 2 times, which is so normal in the Salesforce ecosystem. You would be surprised how many people have the same story. Yeah, and feeling a little bit burnt out. So yeah, I think that's a really good point, because it is really frustrating and it's hard to motivate yourself after that happens. And that's completely understandable. I know personally, I take a couple of weeks, months, whatever you need to be able to get back onto the saddle. Keep studying at the same time so that you're not losing anything that you're learning, but give yourself time. so that you can feel ready the next time. Don't put too much pressure on yourself, because it'll actually be detrimental to you going forward if you put too much stress on yourself for the exam time. So give yourself a break, go off and do something that you enjoy. I like going out for hikes and things like that, just to change my mindset, and then coming back and focusing back in on it. And that's always my technique. Everybody works differently though. So it might be that something works differently for you. But
Yeah, that's really great. And on a slightly more practical note as well, one of the things that's really good, although in some ways I don't necessarily like the wording of the email when you fail. It's not the best wording of the email when you fail. So you fail to become a certified Salesforce professional. Not the best wording, but the best bit about those emails that come through is when you get the sections of the exam and the percentages. Because what you can do then is you can go away and look at those areas and build up and work on improving your knowledge in those areas. I did hear somebody say, and this isn't necessarily the best thing if you're kind of having to pay for exams, I must admit, but I did hear somebody on another user group I was at saying sometimes they felt that failing the exam the first time round was actually good because it exposes those gaps in knowledge. Not the easiest thing when if you haven't to pay for exams yourself, I must admit, but I do think that's a good sentiment, because it helps you to kind of understand what those gaps are and help build towards them. But I failed every single exam of mine the first time round and passed on the second go around. So there's nothing wrong. In fact, if you look throughout the ecosystem and you talk to people, you'll find that the majority of people fail the exam the first time around on quite a few.
Yeah, definitely.
So nothing wrong with failing at all. So that's what I would say. Don't ever feel like if you fail an exam, it's not necessarily something about you as a professional. What all it means is that you didn't answer all the questions in the way Salesforce want you to.
Yeah.
So it doesn't necessarily mean you're a bad admin or whatever. It just means you didn't answer the questions the way Salesforce wanted you to.
And I was going to say, I really like Vicky's point as well about, as well as your certifications and focusing on them and having a pathway, that's important. But there's all your other activities as well, either about your soft skills or your projects. And I think particularly with your hands-on experience, don't underestimate your hands-on experience. And I think what's important is, in the same way, sometimes if you're on an agile project or a scrum project, you do a retrospective. So you have a 2-week sprint, and then you conduct a retrospective to see how it was, what was good, what could have been improved, what you might do differently next time. Consider yourself with your hands-on experience. If you get to a little milestone, do your own retrospective on yourself. How did I perform in that? What skills did I evidence? Are there areas that I would like to improve on? How did the team develop? Did I play a nice role in that? Because there's a whole load of self-awareness within that reflection that will give you some insights that are related to, what do I like to do? What are my strengths? What are my work-ons? How does that link possibly with some of my learning, my certifications, my trailhead expertise? Putting your hand up to say, hey, I worked with a project on Vicki, and I think she played a great role in this capacity, and I really like the way she did this. I'd quite like to try at that. Could I shadow? Could I put my hand up? There's a whole, if you pause to step back, as well as your certifications, which is important, there's a lot of other things that are happening around you day to day, which I think might help you just make sense or feel less burden of just getting certs, because you're perhaps picking up more things than you might think. You've just got to stop to assess.
I want to say thank you, Vicki, because you did hit on a point where you said, this is your path, go down your own path, right? And so I failed the admin exam twice before I passed it, and I'm watching LinkedIn and all these people passing. So I'm feeling that pressure, and it was an internal pressure, right? And so hearing others say, hey, you got to go down your own path and work it at your speed, your level, and go where you want to go is it's refreshing. It's nice to hear. And it's something that probably a lot of us see in the ecosystem where all these people are getting certs, and we get that cert envy is what I want to call it.
Oh, yes, definitely. It is. It's one of the good and bad things about social media at the same time. But I did put an article in there, and it's one that I share out in all of my kind of certification talks. And I didn't put it in this presentation actually, but it's one of my favorites. I'll just stick it on the screen here. It's "Don't let the fear of failing hold you back." And I like this article because it talks about failing being part of the learning experience and part of your learning journey. So almost turning the way that you view failing an exam on its head. It's not a failure. It's just part of your learning journey. You're just going to get there the next time. And that's where everybody's learning journey looks different. And I know that on the PD1 side, I realized that I knew nothing about Visualforce and Lightning Web Components, and that's where I have to focus on now. So you just kind of get that benefit from it. But yeah, it's not easy seeing that on the screen in any way. I don't want to make that sound like it is a thing, but yeah, it is just natural.
Yeah, totally. It is. It's like I put in the chat briefly there that if we are going to be completely realistic about what failing is, true failure is when you don't try. So you only really fail if you don't give it a shot. I used this quote at a session I did at Pax Raymond, but I talked about like the hockey quote that's often tied to Wayne Gretzky, where it says you miss 100% of the shots you don't take. And I think that's true in our journey as admin professionals. If you don't take that chance, you're never gonna pass if you don't take the exam. So and again, it's just a case of keep picking yourself up afterwards, doing what you need to do, whether that's taking a bit of a break, or in some cases you might be the kind of person where it's better to do the exam like the next week again. Some people do that. Because you did that, didn't you, with your UX designer? Luke, you did it like a week later after.
Yeah, definitely. I took that exam and I failed it, but I'd really enjoyed it. And I thought, I'm sure I could have got that. And if I could have taken it an hour later, I would have. But it did me good to pause a little bit and say, well, actually, okay, you didn't know this area so well. But I think I agree with Mark. Kyle, and you taking that exam twice, you've got grit, drive, and resilience. Passion to go again. And then when you get it the third time, it'll feel great because you're like, okay, I've had a knockback on those 2 times, but I've got it the third time. I think Claire makes a valid point to say a lot of the exams come down to the exam technique rather than knowledge. And Jeff makes a really good point in using the process of elimination, to up your probability of answering the questions correctly. So even if you try and eliminate ones, you definitely know it's not one of the 3, and then you take a guess on the 2. There's a lot of that, but ultimately, let's be honest, it's a 60-question test. There's no failure in that, or there is as per how they're judging you, but it's depending on what point you're at in your career and the pressure. I felt it early, when I failed my first admin, I got it again. I was trying to break out of a role into an end user, and I wanted to move to consulting. I got my app builder one, but then I failed subsequent ones, and I think it's at a time where this is the truth. This is not a reality, but I felt I needed it because I saw it on LinkedIn. I saw all the admins, the app builders, the Sales Cloud, the Service Cloud, and I felt all of that pressure too. And I was like, how are they doing it? How? But it's not. It is real, and it's not real. It's you've just got to keep plugging away. And like say, the fact that you've gone back again shows a lot about you. The fact that you go back again and you'll get it shows even more. And you're picking up battle scars on the way, and then you know about yourself, I think.
One piece that they're not showing you on that LinkedIn post is how long they took to pass that exam.
Of course.
So that's, back to that piece of we're seeing it, but what we're not seeing is, the failure. Rather than.
Yeah, I agree with that, Cal. That's one of the things I've actually mentioned on social media before, on mainly LinkedIn, where you don't see enough of the "I didn't pass this time" stories. You always see I passed, but you don't often see anywhere near as often. I didn't get this one, but here's what I learned from doing that. And those stories are, in my view, possibly even more important than the passing, because how many of us actually do fail the exam the first time around or the second time, and so often. So we had more of these stories coming through going, here's what I learned by not actually passing. And here's the things that you can implement as well. How much more beneficial is that going to be for the community?
Yeah, and I think part of that is also the wording of the question is very confusing sometimes. So I think Salesforce have like the mock exam that you can buy for $20. So that's what I did. Like when I finished my study, like I tried the exam because I think it's that the most like the closest to like the wording like the Salesforce have on the real exam. And I see like look at the percentage of like I get for each session, and I feel confident. Okay, I can go and take the real exam. Then that's when I schedule it. But I think part of it is really the language or like the word that's using the question to.
Yeah, I hear what you're saying there, Jenny. 'Cause the thing I've noticed is the exams seem to be deliberately worded to confuse you, so that you have to work a little bit harder to get them correct. So yeah.
Yeah, and I've heard it before, and I absolutely agree with it. But that it's not about the how you do things. Like you can know how to click around in an org and how to navigate and how to actually do things. And for some people, that is the way that you learn. You're a kinesthetic learner. You learn by doing. And it's really hard to take the exam in those circumstances because you don't have the org to actually click around and look around, and you would know where to click to go and find this. But in your day-to-day life, you don't need to be able to recall that information on the spot. And even how many of us just rely on Google to be able to find like maxes and mins and things like that? For the exam, it's asking you about the why and the how and all of the considerations, all of the limitations, and really knowing the product backwards and forwards that way. So it is tricky that way.
Yeah, and I find what helpful for me is that because I'm the visual learner, so when I read a question, I always like visualize it, like either in my head or like on paper, but on the like during the exam, when I read the question, I always like visualize that in my head, like especially when we have like relationship of the object, to make sure that I have it like correctly before like do the elimination of like the answers and try it. That's why like I will stop a few times because like I always roll my eyes when I do the thinking or like the visualization. But yeah, that helped me a lot actually. And I find that it's really helpful, especially when you're not in front of like or like do it actually hands-on.
For me, from my experience, I think taking exam as an on-site center is much more easier and easy to focus, and it's have you reduce the risk of issue like internet disconnection, disconnected, and other thing like you move your head around, you lose focus on the camera, and the proctor will pose you. The story recall me the memory for my first exam back in 2013, quite a long time. So back to that days in Vietnam, we don't have any center, and also we don't have the strong internet connection. And even when I was in the exam, the signal is not good, so it's disconnected me, and sometimes we have to dive into the international center in order to re-enable the exam. And from my experience, if the issue happened 2 or 3 times, the proctor may be suspected you do something wrong, and they post your exam, and this caused a lot of worry and other thing else. And from back to that day, my college also take the exam. We have no knowledge. We just take the training course from a Salesforce instructor, and other thing is try to memorize. So many people, I think, if they got posed in the exam 2 or 3 times, most of them fail. And for today, I think it's much easier because we can use the laptop camera instead of set up the external camera which are on the PC. And also when you take the exam online proctor, if the light in the room is very dark or something moving around, they hear the voice or someone put into the camera, they pause you and they force you to use your laptop or to turn around 360 degrees to see there's nobody in the room and nothing wrong. So it's caused a lot of worry and distract you. Yeah, this is my experience.
Yeah, that's really a hard situation to be in, especially when you don't have stable internet. I know I've taken all of mine online too, because my nearest testing center is 3.5, 4 hours away. So quite a hike to be able to take an exam. And even I have the chance of having a relatively stable internet connection, but one time I was really tired and it just kept apparently going like this, like putting your hand over your face or something like that. It got stopped about 3 or 4 times in the exam because of that. And they kept saying, well, take your hands off of your face, but you're just sitting there and you're looking at a screen and you're kind of sitting there like this. And yeah, the proctored ones can be difficult that time. That way.
Yeah, I used to join as well. This is the same situation happened with me. I used to join a trial exam for advanced admin. So the exam is quite long. It's more than 118 minutes, and I booked the wrong hour. So I wake up at 3 a.m. So I'm very sleepy. When my eyes close down, they pause the exam. And they asked me to turn on the light because it's in the midnight, so everyone in the house is sleeping. So but I have to turn on the camera and everything. It's long story. Yeah. And so for someone asking if English is not the first language, me too. I'm Vietnamese, so it's very difficult for me for starting, but it's good. And for me, the motivation and momentum is how you easy to get the certification is that you for me for the first time I failed, and I spent 1 month to learn, but I have no experience, no hands-on knowledge. So I feel I'm not really confident. But 1 or 2 years later, when I earn enough experience, I take all the exams, or even the for.com developer, and I just go to the exam without any rehearsal or something like that. So at that time, I feel the momentum, the motivation, and how confident you are, the more easier you easy to pass the exam. Of course, you have to earn hands-on knowledge. And for me, for now, when I starting to having the non-profit, I figure out that the fast way and how you learn very fast for admin is that you start doing like non-profit, and with the non-profit data structure and other thing, you learn very deeply how to customize the system, and also some design from non-profit is very good to learn and catch up. Yeah, this is my experience. And try to learn with other people, not just alone by yourself. Jarhead is good, but it's very fundamental. Yeah.
Thanks for sharing that with us, Louis.
Yes, thanks, Louis. Yeah.
Mark, quiz.
Yes, we'll fire up the quiz. So we've got a quiz to end the session, and we also have some prizes that are coming up from that. So let me just get to the right slide on here, and then we'll start the quiz. And we've got a couple of announcements as well, but we'll get the quiz started. So the quiz is going to be on Slido as well. We're using the same code hang on, I've pressed share rather than present. Let me come out of that. Sometimes clicking the right button helps. So yeah, so it'll be on Slido as well with the same code as we had before. And
if you just bear with me, I'll post that code in the chat.
Will do. Yes, and that should be appearing on the screen once I skip over to the next slide. So here we go. So if you go to slido.com and enter the code you see on the screen there, or the code in the chat, and join the quiz. Yeah, so we've got Paul.
So let's have a look. That's 760379 for anyone that's joining from via slido.com.
Great.
Salvatore's on. That's good.
Yeah.
Let's try and get everybody that's still on the call entered, because you've got a good chance to win something. Kristen, perfect.
Great. So while we're getting people joining in, what the quiz is, to be honest, I kind of stole the idea from this quiz after I was tagged in the post from Vicki as well. This is a quiz based on a Salesforce Ben blog, which we'll probably post in the chat, but is the Salesforce bucket list. So this quiz is about basically seeing just a bit of fun to see how many of these bucket list items you have ticked off. So we have 6 in the quiz, and by my count, we should have either 8 or 9 coming through.
That's excluding me and you, Mark.
Yep.
So there's 8. Okay, perfect. And let's have a look. So is it just Vicki that's not joined? Yeah, perfect. There we go.
Yeah, I just forgot to press submit.
Nice, okay. I want to join too, but we're not allowed.
Yeah, we're not allowed to win prizes. So let's go with the first one. So there's going to be four rounds of 5 items from the bucket list. So if you've done one of these items on the list, just click on it and then click on the send or submit button. Can't remember what it says to put that through. So here's the first run. So attend a user group, achieve Trailhead Ranger status, find a mentor, complete a certification, or attend a Salesforce event. Dreamforce does not count as a Salesforce event under the Salesforce Ben one, because that is coming up later on. So you're looking for things like World Tour, TDX, Connections. So an official Salesforce branded event that isn't Dreamforce. I've got 1 second left. And looking quite good.
Nice.
So that's nice, yes. And so as you can imagine, all of the answers are technically correct for each one, but we're seeing how the bucket list to go through. So let's see who's in the lead. So we've got Paul, Akib, and Kyle in the top three positions, followed by Brian and Kristen. So we'll go to round 2. And round 2 is learn flow, complete a super badge, get an app exchange certification, which would be things like DocuSign, Kobana,
DocuSign.
Yeah. Create a real world developer project and attend Dreamforce. I will say with that one, virtual attendance counts. Virtual definitely counts. So let's see how we're doing. Okay, so we've got a few coming through. So we've got, again, all of them are technically correct. And then let's go. So we've got Paul, Akib, and Kyle still sitting in the top 3, but we've got Vicki and Janie in 4th and 5th place. So let's go to the third one. So it's attend a community event. This is a community conference. So this is things like non-profit dreaming, NorCal dreaming, year leading, those kind of things.
So have you attended a community event? Have you written an article for Salesforce Ben? Have you mentored somebody? Have you spoken at a user group? Or have you volunteered your time?
Yes. For anybody on the call who may have done sprints for Salesforce.org, those would count as volunteering your time. Okay, so the timer seems to have gone down. I can't see anything, so there you go. And got a few. I think I know who in the room has written an article for Salesforce Ben, and I know we've got one coming up soon as well. So Paul in first place, Akib, Kyle, and then Brian and Vicky. So here's the last one. And in the practice one, this is the one slide I could not fill anything out from. So, so we'll see how this one goes. So here's the last one, and it's become a champion. So it's like marketing champion, which is the only one currently available, but lightning champion, platform champion as well. Create an app exchange app, speak at Dreamforce, start a Salesforce business, and take a selfie with Mark Benioff. And I do believe we have someone who on the call who spoke at Dreamforce 3 times while pregnant. Is that correct, Vicky?
Yeah, 8 weeks pregnant, so with lots of morning sickness. Dreamforce isn't as much fun when you can't participate in after parties.
Okay, so we've got a few ones on there, and nobody's taking a selfie with Mark Benioff.
Oh, nice. I'd be interested to use create the app exchange app. That would be cool.
Yes, yes.
Tell us in the chat.
Indeed. So, and that was 50% of people. So apparently 4 or 5 people apparently created one.
Nice.
So let's see. So here's the final leaderboard. So we've got Paul, Akib, and Kyle still sitting at the top in first, second, and third place. Brian and Kristen. So for Akib, Paul and Kyle, I have your details, so I can easily contact you about the stuff. But Akib, if you can pop your email in a message to either myself or Luke, we will sort out for you your prize. We actually do have 3 Salesforce certification vouchers that we can give away due to
well themed after our event tonight.
Exactly. Yeah, due to doing a recap of Dreamforce. So we've got those vouchers that we can claim.
And Kyle, we know where your third one needs to go, and we're all supporting you and rooting for you.
Oh, I've got it passed. Next one up is Platform App Builder, but I would actually like to go ahead and forfeit that and give that up to somebody else that can utilize it. I get my certification vouchers from Trailhead Military, so I appreciate that.
Oh, nice.
No worries.
Very kind.
So we can either give it to, we've got Brian and Kristen in 4th and 5th place. So if you are if Brian's happy, would you want one, Brian?
Mark, yeah, no, it's okay actually.
Yeah. Okay. So we can cover that and we can get that sorted out. So let me just skip the slides. So onto our closing announcement, and we'll be wrapped up very shortly. So first thing we want to mention is that our next event is going to be our second Making an Impact event. And this time around, it is also a panel event. We started this series back in August, but we're doing our second Making an Impact event in October, October 21st. And we have 6 Salesforce MVPs, and they're going to come and talk to us about what it's like to be an MVP and give us some of their stories from that. This is going to be quite timely because sometime in November, the next round of MVP nominations will open up. So this will hopefully be a timely event to kind of give people a bit of an understanding as to what it's like to be an MVP, as well as how to potentially nominate people if you have someone you would like to nominate. The next one to put in it as well is Salesforce Plus, as noted, is officially live. I won't divulge too much of my opinions of Salesforce Plus overall here. However, what I will say is there is some good content in particularly the Dreamforce sections as well. There's some really good bits that come out if you can get past all of the marketing, heavy Salesforce selling side of things, which is to be expected. But Salesforce Plus is alive, and you can go and watch that. Anytime you like, all you have to do is connect your trailblazer.me profile or log in there's an option of logging in using the Salesforce user or under Marketing Cloud as well. Next one I want to share is a little bit biased off of coming from the nonprofit community for a long time. Next week, Salesforce.org are doing a week of learning, and there's a lot of really good sessions on there. There's things around how to host virtual events, there's things around multi-factor authentication. There's a good variety of events. So if you're interested in that, have a look at the link that will be posted in the chat and maybe have a look and see if there's any sessions you would like to attend. they are really good stuff though, from what I've seen. I've signed up to a number of them myself. Another one, again, being a little bit biased from the org side of things, but the next open source commons community sprint that happens is happening on the 20th and 21st of October. Sprints are a chance to come together and to really help to actually work on real projects that are in need of some good support. So, for example, I know Vicki on this project, what the declarative lookup rollup summaries are now part of the Sales Open Commons programs, and so there's going to be some work done around. I don't know what the DLS work is going to be as such, but that's one of the projects. There's also work that gets done around outbound funds and grant management, and a variety of other topics. I myself am going to be one of the leaders on the admin skills group, and we're going to be having a look at basically where we take the program from here, following the admin keynote at Dreamforce, as well as hopefully getting some bits done on the documentation that we've been working on. And I believe this is the last one, or at least the last one I've got on slides. But Pack Dreaming happened recently, and it was really good conference to be at. The videos are now gradually going live. So if you want to see any of the sessions that was done on the day there, we'll be putting the link in the YouTube channel for that. Great, cheers, Luke. So you can go have a watch of the sessions. Not all of them are up there yet, but they are coming. There's about 8 videos on there at the moment, but there will be more sessions coming in the coming days and weeks. And last thing I very quickly want to mention, I don't have a slide for this, but I'll be posting on it certainly on social media and LinkedIn. But Mike Grandel and myself have partnered up this week to actually start to do a series of sessions on basically an introduction to Flow. So if you've never touched Flow in your life and you would like to learn a bit more about Flow, look out for links coming up on my social media, on Twitter and LinkedIn, and we'll be sharing that. We're calling those sessions Flow to the Future, and we're going to actually, the theme of it's going to be, we're going to take our fictional Salesforce admin, Marty McFlow, and say he's now got to learn Flow and take him through the journey of him learning how to build flows.
Nice, Mark. Well done.
So that's it from us. I'm going to stop recording here and say thank you to everybody, and hope everyone's had a really good time.